Hello everyone and welcome back to TechZulu Live from Pubcon in Las Vegas. I am here with Andy from WebCertain Group. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
So you've had a number of panels today, and one that I'm most interested in is search in the U.S. versus internationally, and global search. So what are some of the key differences there, and what are some of the best practices?
Well, I think the first thing to point out, one of the things we discussed in the session, was the rate of growth of the search market outside the US and the UK. And if you look at Google's growth figures, for instance, I mean in the last quarter they talked about 33% growth over the previous year. But actually if you take out the US and the UK, their growth globally is 44%, which is quite a lot more. And Yandex in Russia and Baidu in China are both growing substantially faster than that. So one of the key points I was trying to make was, look, you know, this is the new gold rush, is international outside UK and US, where the economies are not exactly exciting, but there's quite a few economies that are still doing something where there's opportunities for marketers.
What are some of the, what do you think are some of the drivers of that growth?
The drivers of the growth are mainly economic, really. It's also the number of people that are coming on stream in terms of internet access. That's especially the case in China and Russia. But you know, the Chinese economy, the Australian, the Malaysian, the Indonesian, the Brazilian, the Russian, they're all growing. So you know, that makes a big difference to how any business does.
Yeah. And is Google the main leader in terms of search in other markets outside of the US?
Well, Google is globally the leading search engine. And in some parts of the world it's very strong, stronger than the US. I mean, in most of Europe it's up at 95% share. But you know, there are parts of the globe where there's a rebel, a search engine that's not Google, that's either first or doing very well.
Okay. What are your thoughts on all of the recent changes with Google and as it's going to impact SEO?
You mean from a global perspective or?
Either.
Right. Well, I think one of the things that happens with Google's changes is they tend to take a little longer to work their way around the world. So some of them take it like Panda, for instance. You know, takes effect a bit later in Europe than it does and the rest of the world than it does in the US. But I think that that there are some question marks over things like Google Plus and how that's going to thrive in the global world and what difference that's going to make. I mean, there are also quite a few things they do in the US that they're not yet really doing outside the US, like I think they're just developing daily deals in some cities in the US. Well, that's definitely not something we're seeing outside of the US. So opportunities for SEO is really to, I think, be considerate about the fact that people are different in different countries. There's a cultural difference, and the cultural difference increasingly reflects itself in the Google algorithm because of the way it works. You know, things like click-through rates and you know, and taking those into account in, you know, rankings, which it seems to me is increasingly going to be a factor. That means that what is said in the SERPs, in the search engine results pages, has an impact on how many people click through and therefore how well things rank. So effectively you've got to attract people locally, which means you've got to address them much more directly in a way that appeals to them, rather than just placing keywords. Right.
To the point of keywords, though, how do you address the differences with keywords between the US versus, say, the UK?
Well, it's the same. The differences between the US and the UK are essentially a good example of the fact that keywords are different and that you can't translate them. You know, we don't search for sneakers.
Trainers, people, trainers.
Yeah, and if you look for pants, then you're probably...
You'll be surprised.
You might get a surprise, yes, if you, especially if you buy some. But you know, these kind of differences, I mean, you even see these differences within the US, where there's different sort of patterns of search. But obviously when you go outside and you start to talk about other languages, the one thing that's absolutely key is you cannot at all ever translate a keyword. You just cannot do it. You've always got to start afresh and say, what are people searching for? And do the research from the ground up.
Okay.
Anytime you translate it, you're lost. I say in my presentations, does anybody here admit to translating keywords, and then show a nice picture of a horrible jail, which is where I say they're going to end up if they keep doing it.
Very good point. What are some other just best practices in general that you're picking up either here at the show or just in recent days and months?
Well, one of the things on the global search panel which is becoming clear is that there's a lot more agreement about the fact that local domains are having a big effect, or having a more positive effect. There has been for years a lot of debate about whether .coms were better or local domains, but because of some of the things that are going on with duplication and even things like Panda, local domains are becoming much more key, and there's more agreement that they are key. There's less of a debate about it. So that's a key factor, I think.
Okay. And a big area of discussion here at Pubcon is mobile. And where does that come into play on the international scale?
Extremely important. One of the things with mobile is that there are people accessing the web in some parts of the world more frequently using mobile than landlines, because the infrastructure for mobile is better than the landline access. So you've got parts of Southeast Asia and parts of Latin America where actually the mobile is more important than the PC. So it's definitely a key thing for the future. And you get this thing about solo-mo, and that's equally important in other parts of the world. So there are some trends which are really being picked up by emerging markets faster even than they are in places like the US.
Wow. Wonderful. Well, any other final takeaways or anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to bring up?
Talk to your customer in their own language.
Very well put and very succinct. I like that. Thank you so much, Andy.
Thank you.
Everyone make sure that you catch Andy. And Andy, where's the best place to find you?
The best place to find me here at the show, you mean?
No, online.
Online. If you just search for Atkin-Krueger or WebCertain, you'll find me.
Wonderful. So Andy with WebCertain, and make sure that you check back with us here at TechZulu.com, because you'll be able to find Andy's video and many others from Pubcon. This is Amanda with TechZulu.com.